Hello, everyone. So this is going to be part one of a multi-part video series around the examination MS-102 from Microsoft. It is MS-102 Microsoft 365 Administrator. So now this will be split into a number of video parts, as I said in the beginning. And the reason is I don't think it's worthwhile of anyone's time if you sit for a course which is like 4 to 5 hours in long in one stretch. You need time to digest the information that you're getting. You need to try and do it on your own. And if you have any questions, you should be able to ask in the comments. And you should be able to build the knowledge that you have step by step. So I will be splitting the videos into multiple parts, depending upon how long it is and what kind of topics we are covering. Now, an important question that comes up is why should you listen to me? I mean, I respect your time, and I don't want anyone else to be wasting my time either. So it's a two-way street. Now, just a big disclaimer, I am not a certified trainer or a Microsoft trainer by any stretch of the imagination. But I've been working in IT for the last 18 years, and I currently work as a cloud architect for a large financial organization. So I work on Microsoft 365, Azure, and AWS on a daily basis, day in, day out. So hands-on cloud architect. So I started working with the Microsoft Cloud technologies when it was version 1. So I don't know how many of you know about it. It is currently named as Microsoft 365. Before that, it was Office 365. And even before that, the first version of the cloud technologies from Microsoft was named BPOS. So that's when I started working on the cloud technology. So that's going like a decade back, more or less. As Microsoft being Microsoft, the first version, the BPOS, wasn't wasn't a great hit. It wasn't very friendly. I mean, it was version 1, so it had its flaws, but Microsoft improved on that, and they came up with Office 365, and it conquered the market. And they have been adding more and more services ever since and growing the platform into a billion-dollar business. This is the examination. And as you can see, these are the skills measured. So we have 4 skills that's been measured over here. Deploy and manage a Microsoft 365 tenants. So that carries about 25 to 30%. You have implement and manage identity and access solutions in Microsoft Entra ID. That's another 25 to 30. And security and threats using Defender. And the fourth one is managing compliance. So all these 4 topics are pretty much around 20-25% mark of the entire 1,000 marks that you have in the exam. So our first topic that we need to tackle is actually deploying the solution. So we need to spin up a Microsoft 365 tenant. So you should know how to spin up a tenant. You should know how to set it up so that we have a good base from which we can add more and more information, build more and more services on it and take our knowledge to the next level. So in this video, we will be going ahead with actually spinning up a tenant, Microsoft 365 tenant. We will go with a trial version so that it's much more easy for you to follow. So there's no money involved. Or we could also tackle it by using a Microsoft 365 developer tenant. I'll explain it later on. And we will go ahead with setting it up. So what are the initial things that you need to do once you have a tenant in place? So if you are looking for a straightforward videos with real world examples, real world knowledge with no flashy slides and animations flying in from all different sides, then you're in the right place. But if you're looking for something really fancy, maybe this isn't for you. So let's get started. All right, our first business is to sign up for a Microsoft 365 tenant. Now, there are a couple of ways of doing it. So the first one that we have is if you Google, say for example, if you go into Google and search for Microsoft 365 trial, you will be able to find an opt-in in which it says something similar to this. We don't want this particular page. So if I go back, just waiting for it to load. So you might end up in a page like this if you hunt for the trial version. So 365 standard, premium, 365 apps, these are not what we are looking for. So if you scroll down in that particular page, come all the way down and look for enterprise plans. Click over here. And now this is what we want. So we either want Microsoft 365 E3, this is one of them, or Microsoft 365 E5. The reason why we are going for this one is it comes with all the services that we need, whereas Exchange Online, Teams, and SharePoint, and OneDrive, and compliance services that we have, everything is there. Whereas if you go with the other basic versions, it doesn't come with everything. It's pretty much all the Office applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, plus a bit of here and there. So that's not what we mean. So let's go ahead with this particular option, Microsoft 365 E3. So if I scroll down in that page, we should have an option that says free trial. So over here, so as you can see, it says, so this is what we're looking for, try free for 1 month. Now, what Microsoft has done is once you sign up for this particular trial, and as part of the setup, they do ask for a credit card information. So they have slightly changed things. Before, back in the day, the process was much more simple. When which you sign up for a trial version, you don't have to enter any credit card information, and after the 1 month trial, it just expires. So whatever you have done, you lose access to it, and everything kind of just drops. Now they are asking for the credit card information, but it is still a 1 month free trial. So you still get to use 25 user licenses, Microsoft 365 E3 licenses in our case. You can use all the services like Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, spin up mailboxes, send and receive emails, all of those good stuff. So you can follow along nicely. You can make all the changes that you want, which will be helpful for the course that you're taking and for clearing the exam. But make sure that you cancel the trial before the 1 month is up. If not, they will charge you for 1 year. So if you are spinning up 25 users, depending upon what you select during the sign up process, which we will go through, you will be charged if you don't cancel it. So this is one way of doing it. So spinning up a Microsoft 365 trial version. Another option that we have is there is something called Microsoft 365 Developer Tenant. So it is purely aimed for developers when which you want to, code your application, spin up your application, see how things work, and that is completely free. So it is for 90 days, the developer trial, but after 90 days, you can renew it. So you can keep on renewing as long as you're using the tenant for something related to development. And that comes with everything that you have over here, the Microsoft 365 Entra ID. It comes with Exchange Online, SharePoint Online. You have 25 user licenses. And one good thing with the developer tenant is you can do it in 2 ways. You can either get Microsoft to give us all the sample data. So Microsoft will create all the user accounts. They'll spin up the mailboxes, put some data in it, put some team channels, SharePoint Online data, all of those. So you're ready from the get-go. Or you could have a customized Microsoft 365 developer tenant in which you start from scratch, similar to what we are doing over here. So that is option number 2. Or third one is if you're already working as a Microsoft 365 administrator of some sort, then you might have a tenant that you're using within your company in which you can at least walk through what we are trying to learn over here. Maybe you don't complete all the tasks, but at least you can see what the options are, where the options are, and how to make the changes. So now let's click on the trial link over here, and let's go through the notion of actually setting up a trial. Now, the first question that you are asked is to enter an email address. I keep getting the wrong arrow. So what we need is to give an email address over here. So it can be any email address. So this is not what we are using for this tenant. So you can give your personal email address, for example. Now let me type in, say, techshuffle@outlook.com. It could be anything, Gmail, Outlook, whatever. Click on next. Okay, what they're saying is, okay, you look to have a good email address, but we need to set up your account because this one is not associated with any Microsoft 365 trials or tenant. So click on setup account. Now fill in all the details. So in our case, say tech shuffle, business phone number. Let's just make up a phone number 208 111 1111. You can give your number, for example. You will have to give your number later on for satisfying an SMS, so verifying your mobile number. So you might as well give a real number over here. Company name, let's say Tech Shuffle. You can give any name you want. You can give your own name. It just doesn't matter. This is a trial version. These information can be changed. So let me put a space over there, just make it a bit more nice and easy. There are a few things that can't be changed. We will explain it as we go through. So company size, okay, let's pick 2 to 4. Country or region, this is important. So what we specify over here, this particular field, this cannot be changed. So if you have a Microsoft 365 tenant that you have spun up on one region or one country, and later on you want to have that move to a different country for whatever reason, maybe the company is moving the headquarters to a different region. Say, for example, you spin it up in London and now the company headquarters is moving to New York or maybe Singapore, and you want your tenant to reside over there, this particular field cannot be changed. You will have to spin up a new tenant. So this is quite important. So pick a country where your company is doing business or where your company's headquarters is, in real life. For a trial option, it doesn't really matter. Pick your own country and go ahead with the process. So we don't want all the spam emails, so I will uncheck those and click next. Now, this is where I said we will have to verify our phone number that we give. So here, put in a proper number that you have, send the verification code, just like any other process that you're used to these days. Get the SMS, get the number, punch it in, and progress. And I'll be back once I have done this because I don't want to give out my mobile number out in the public. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm back. So I have given my phone number. I got the SMS and verified, and this is the screen that you will get. Now, this page is really important. So here, what Microsoft is asking us to do is this particular information over here. So this is the username. So this is the name of the user, admin user, that you will be setting up for the first time. So this admin user will have full rights onto this tenant. And we call this admin rights as global administrator. So it's full rights across the tenant to do whatever you want. Now, you could give anything. So some of the names are restricted from a Microsoft perspective. So if you type in admin, I don't think they're like admin, or maybe that was the case. I don't know whether they have changed it, but you don't want to have names that kind of give out as to what the account is doing. So you don't want admin or administrator. You could try some other variations. In our case, maybe I'll just go for super user, for example, or Superman, or whatever you want. So let me stick with super user. So this is the user account of the administrator, the first administrator. Now, this particular field that we have, this domain name, this is quite important. This is the name of your company normally. So for example, if you work for BMW, you want to put in BMW or something related to BMW, like BMW Online or something along those lines. You don't want to put, say, BMW Test or BMW 123 or some random names if you are trying to do this in production. If it is a test domain, it doesn't matter. Now, the main information or the key takeaway over here is you cannot change this domain name that you have. So whatever you enter here, whatever information you put in here, this cannot be changed. So this domain information is very key. So this is the first domain that get registered as part of the tenant. It is something.onmicrosoft.com, as you can see over here. So on Microsoft.com, this part is fixed for every Microsoft 365 tenant. You can't change that. This is the part that you can change. So if my company is called Tech Shuffle, I will try and see whether I can take Tech Shuffle over here. You type it in, click outside, or maybe click on the password option. By saving it, Microsoft will tell whether that is available or not. It says techshuffle.onmicrosoft.com is not available. So I have already taken that. I have another tenant when which I'm using that. So I have to go with something else. So I could type in numbers, TechShuffle 1, for example. Let me see whether that is available. Or so that is available because you don't have any error messages. Or I could say TechShuffle Lab or whatever. I mean, whatever comes to your mind, whatever ideas that you can come up with because it is a trial version. In your case, maybe you can put your own name or you can give your pet name. It just doesn't matter. But when you do it in production, always make sure that this name is something to do with your company name, because you don't want to have something like my company test.onmicrosoft.com. And then later on, the test becomes kind of production. So you start playing with the tenant that you have, then you start bringing users, production users, and soon the test subscription becomes your live production tenant. You start buying license and everything. And this name sticks. You cannot change it. You cannot remove it. And it will come up in public domains when which, say, for example, you're trying to share a OneDrive with an external company, this name will come up. So make sure that the name that is specified over here is something related to the company. So, talk with the company marketing guys or HR guys, whoever makes up those decisions. Take a name that is related to the company. Very important. And you cannot change this. So two takeaways: make sure it is something related. Second one is you cannot change this domain name. Now let's go ahead with Text Shuffle Lab. Let's see whether that is available. Okay, that is. Now given a password, so this is your super user, your global administrator, full admin that you have on this tenant. Make sure the password is complex enough. I'll punch something in. Some of the commonly used passwords, Microsoft will come back and say you can't use that. So if it is something that is commonly used by many people, common keywords and word combinations, you will be given an error message saying that you have to use something else. All the usual stuff. So click on next. So it says creating account. Please do not refresh the page. So let's just wait. It's not going to spin up the tenant straight away. It will ask you for your credit card information and a few more other bits and pieces, which we will see in a minute. All right. The next page comes up. So this is where we specify how many users you want to have as part of this trial. So it says over here that the first month is free. So it says here, very clear. So during the first month, you will have 25 user licenses. Now, after the first month, you will have X amount of license based on what you specify in this particular field. So over here, by default, it says 1 and it says maximum of 25 during trial. So you could say during the trial, I want to have 25. And after the trial, if you want to stick around, you say, okay, I only want 5 or I only want 1 if you want to continue with the service. So make sure you either stick with a low value just in case you forget to cancel the trial and you get charged. You only get charged for 1 user. Don't stick in 25 over there because you will get charged for 25 users. So let's put something sensible. Let's just keep 1 for the time being, so that after the trial, you'll have 1 license. You can always purchase more license, anytime you want. It only takes a minute or so. And so don't worry about having a bigger number over here. Let's stick with 1. Now click on add payment method. So this is where you put in your credit card details, punch in your name and address details and country and click save. And once you have gone through the payment information, Microsoft will start spinning up the tenant that you have, and it will take a minute or two, and the tenant will be set up, and you will be able to log in with the user that you used in the previous screen. So in our case, it will be super user at techshuffle.onmicrosoft.com. So go through that option, finish it off, and let's come back once we have the tenant up and running. Once your tenant has been fully set up, this is the kind of page where you will land. You will have all the admin portals over here. So click on admin to see all the admin portals. You have all the applications that you can install. So this is just one user who has been logged into the tenant, who is the super user in our case. Now let's just sign out and let's go through the notion of actually coming to this particular page. So for example, you have set up the tenant, you have shut down your machine, and you're coming back to start learning. So let's close. How do you log into the 365 tenant? So now that we have signed up for a tenant, even though it's a trial version, it comes with all the features. So we have signed up for it. How do we log in for the first time or subsequent times? There are multiple ways by which you can do it. The common way is to go to office.com, punch in your credentials. So it is remembering, in our case, it is remembering our user account. So mine is superuser at techshuffle.onmicrosoft.com. Yours might be, superuser or superman at, yourdomain.onmicrosoft.com. When I say your domain, it could be your name, your company name. It could be, learning.onmicrosoft.com, whatever is available. Now, office.com is one way of doing it. Another option is to have login.microsoftonline.com. That will also, again, take you straight into the login page. You punch in your credentials and you're inside. So, there's no right or wrong answer here. There's multiple ways of doing it. So let's stick with office.com. Let's click on sign in. Now, it's remembering my username, so it has taken it. Otherwise, you need to punch in your username. Now, let's enter the password. Hopefully, I can remember that. Yes. It says, do you want to keep signed in, so that it will put a cookie in. If you say yes, you'll have a longer session. If not, you can say no. Now, this is the page. This is the landing page that you have. As an administrator, if you come through office.com, as an administrator, you still have access to install applications like Office applications, including Office, the whole Office suite, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, everything. Now, we are not into installing applications over here as part of the examination syllabus that we need to cover. So we click on admin. So this is where all the admin portals are. Click on administrator. Now, let's click on that. It opens up the admin portal. So this is the initial page in which you will configure most of the options so that our tenant is kind of fit for purpose for production or for testing purposes. So you have a few menus on the left hand side. The middle pane gives you more options depending upon what you select on the left hand side. Let's click on show all. So it expands all the options that we have. So we have signed up a tenant, we have logged into the tenant. Now, one thing that we need to do as part of this particular process of learning way ahead is to have a domain name added. If you follow the Microsoft curriculum in the Learn website, learn.microsoft.com, the adding the domain part comes much later on, but I would recommend that having a domain in place, first of all, will give you much more options to play with. It helps you understand what certain terminologies mean later on. So let's go and add a domain. So let's go to left-hand menu that you have, expand settings, and click on domains. So this is the option that we are looking for. So let me just highlight that. So within settings, you click on domains. That is the tab or the tile that you want to add or remove domains or to manage domains. So let's go ahead with that. Click on domains. All the information regarding the domains will come up in the middle pane. Now, as you can see, you only have one domain as part of the initial sign up process. So that is your domain that you stuck in when you went through the sign up process of Microsoft 365 Tenant. So in our case, it is techshuffle.onmicrosoft.com, and it says it's the default domain and it's in a healthy state. Now, one point to note about this particular domain is that it is a fully rootable domain. So if you create a user account and stick an email address in, so give a license so that the mailbox has been spun up, you can send and receive emails using this domain. So it is as good as having google.com or yourcompany.com or microsoft.com, whatever the email address that you're familiar with. Like if you work for a company and you have a company email address, the same goes over here. This domain, techshuffle.onmicrosoft.com, or whatever you have in your tenant, is a rootable public domain. It is completely managed by Microsoft. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to set up DNS records for that. You don't have to maintain MX, or you have to point into a different place. Everything is pre-configured for you by Microsoft. Well and good that we have a .onmicrosoft.com domain, and it's a fully rootable domain. But we need our own custom domain. So in any company, you need to have your own domain name. Say, for example, if you have a company, say Microsoft.com, you work for Microsoft, Microsoft will have Microsoft.com. So that domain name has to be added here. So in our case, we are going ahead with TechShuffle. So I have registered a domain called techshuffle.xyz. So that's a valid domain. And in order to use that domain for email purposes or Teams or any Microsoft services, we have to add the domain here first. So let's do that. Let's click on the Add Domain button over here to add a domain. Now it is asking for the name of the domain. So in our case, it is techshuffle.xyz. Now this domain has to be registered. So if you don't have a registered domain, there's no point having it over here. You won't be able to use it. But this is registered already so that we can use that in the lab. So let's go ahead with the button that says use this domain. Let's click on that one. Microsoft is trying to verify and see who is the DNS provider. So it says, okay, fine. In my case, it has picked it up. It says that my DNS provider is GoDaddy, and I have two ways by which I can create the DNS records over here. Now, why do we have to create DNS records? So this is part of the option of verifying your domain. So you can't just stick in any domain that you have, say, for example, Microsoft.com, and start using it because it's not your domain. You don't own it. It belongs to Microsoft. So any domain that you stick in here has to be owned by you, or at least you should be able to make changes to the DNS records. So if you have a friend's domain, then by all means, that's fine. But you should have control to make changes to the DNS. So in order to verify that you own the domain, Microsoft will ask you to create certain records within your DNS zone. In our case, Microsoft has picked up that our domain registrar is GoDaddy. You have two ways by in which you can do the verification. Either you can sign into GoDaddy straight away from here and then verify. So by virtue of signing into GoDaddy, Microsoft kind of understands that you own the domain that is being registered with GoDaddy. Or you can pick up the DNS records that Microsoft gives from here and go and do it manually, which is what we will do so that you get to see how it works. So now click on more options. So here it says these are the options that we have. Either sign into GoDaddy or create a text record. Or if you can't add a text record for whatever reason, you can add an MX record. If that doesn't work either, you can add a text file if you have a website for your domain. So this is just trying to verify that you are the owner of this particular domain and that Microsoft can trust that they can go ahead and add this domain and make it available for you as part of this tenant. So in our case, we will go with the second option that says add a text record because that is quite easy one in terms of setting up the DNS records. Adding a text record is not destructive, whereas MX record is a bit, it does make changes. So MX record is all about where your email goes. So when someone sends an email to techshuffle.xyz, where does it go to? That's what MX record is all about. Now, you can also add a text file, but I don't have a website at the moment. You can. So let's add the text record over here. So let's select the option that says add a text record to the domain's DNS record and click on continue. Microsoft will list the text record that it wants to create in GoDaddy, which is my domain registrar. And what it does is it will wait, and then you can click on verify and see whether Microsoft picks up the changes that we have made. So certain domain registrars takes a while for the changes to replicate, and DNS records does take a while. Some of them take longer, some takes a few minutes, some takes a few hours. It can take up to 24 hours for the DNS records to be fully replicated across the world. So this is the information that we have. We need to create a text record. The name is @ and this is the value that Microsoft is looking for. MS equals this text value. In order to create these records, let's log into my GoDaddy account. That's already here. So this is techshuffle.xyz. I'm in my GoDaddy portal. Now we need to create a text record to verify that we own the domain. So we click on add new record, select the option that says text. The name that Microsoft has set is @ wrong keyboard. So name is @ and the value that we need is this value. So you can click on this, copy the record. Let's go back, stick the value in, copy and paste. So that's the value. TTL, Microsoft says 3600 seconds, which is 1 hour. It doesn't really matter. You can stick in anything you want. So let's go for half an hour. And you click on save. That's how you add a DNS record. It's saying that it's updating the DNS records. It might take a few minutes to an hour to a few hours. So it all depends upon how fast your DNS provider replicates the information across the globe. So let's scroll down and let's see whether our information is there. So here we have, so this is what Microsoft will be looking for, text record with this particular value. So we have it here. We just need to wait for GoDaddy to replicate the information. We can always go back and try straight away. Sometimes, they are very quick. Sometimes they are not. So let's go and verify it by clicking on the verify button. Let's do that. Now, Microsoft is checking with GoDaddy and other DNS providers or its own DNS providers to see, has that change been made? Is that record existing within techshuffle.xyz? If it is existing and Microsoft picks up that, we have made the change, Microsoft will be happy to say that you have verified your domain. Now, in our case, it says try again. Oh, it looks like Microsoft has picked up. So now it says, we are happy. The DNS records are in place for this particular domain, techshuffle.xyz. You can continue. Now, Microsoft by default gives you a lot of DNS records that it wants to use as part of the various services. So using Exchange Online, Intune solutions, which is an MDM solution from Microsoft Teams, you need to have certain DNS records for your domain. At this present state in our course journey, we are not looking into all those features. So let's skip this option for the time being, and we will come back and add it when we need it. So we'll go ahead with this particular option that says skip and do this later. So let's select that and click continue. Now you can always come back to this particular page of domains within the portal, and you can always make changes to your DNS. So it's not like if you don't do it now, it's going to be a showstopper. No, you can always come back and make whatever changes that you want. Add DNS records, remove DNS records. It's all good. So as expected, you have the green tick box. It says domain setup is complete. We click on done, and you will have your new domain listed in the domains page. Let's wait for it to refresh. There you go. Textual.xyz, that's now the default domain. No services selected. That is fine. So now we have a domain in place, which we can use later on for certain services. Now, there is a limit on the number of domains that you can add in this particular pane, and the limit is 900. So you can't have more than 900 email domains as part of a Microsoft 365 tenant. I mean, that's a big enough number, you know. I mean, there are companies who have more than 900 domains. I work in one of those. They don't have that 900 domains for email domains, but they have it for various reasons. Some are for websites, some are for other, third-party services. So there are companies who have more than 900 domains. So if you are going with Microsoft 365, you have a hard limit of 900 for using the Microsoft 365 services, like Exchange Online, for example, having mailboxes up in the cloud. Now we have the domain set up, and we are good to go. If you have more domains in your company, for example, you can click on add domain, go through the same process, stick the name of the domain, verify the domain by either adding the text record or MX record or a text file, whichever one you prefer, and you complete the wizard. And you will have the domain over here. Now, if you start adding a domain, say for example, I have a new domain that says textshuffle.com, for example. I don't have it. You can go through the notion of creating or adding that domain over here. But if you don't have the DNS records in hand, or in certain companies, the way it works is DNS will be handled by a completely different team. So you need to request the DNS team to make the changes. So what you can do in that instance is, you could say add a text record, click continue, get the text record, get this value, get it copied into an email and send it to your team and tell them to make the DNS changes. So in that case, you can't verify the domain straight away because the process takes a while. Your team needs to pick it up. Someone needs to action it. So that's what happens in the real world. In that case, you can come to this stage, and now there's no point verifying because you haven't done anything. You can just click the close button over here. Just click on close, and it takes you back to the domains page. So you will have that domain over there, textshuffle.com. It says incomplete setup. That is completely fine. Once your DNS team or whoever is in charge has made the DNS changes that has been requested by Microsoft, you can always come here and start the setup again. Or if it is a domain that you don't want to go ahead with, you can always click on remove the domain as well. So you can go ahead with this option. Once you have made a change, click on verify and go through the wizard and complete the setup. If not, you can just click on domains on the left-hand pane. Come over here. This domain is not owned by me. So I'll just remove by clicking the remove domain. It will ask you to confirm that you're happy to go ahead and remove it. I am. So let's click on remove domain. It takes a minute or two because it needs to check whether that particular domain has been used by any of your users, any other services. In our case, we haven't done any of those, so it's pretty quick. The domain has been removed. So far, we have a 365 tenant. We have logged into it. We have created a domain. Created in the sense we have added a domain that we have purchased by adding it over here, verifying the DNS records in domain provider who is GoDaddy, and creating the records over there, coming back over here, verifying the records, and making sure that the domain setup is complete. So we have two of these. One is by default from Microsoft, and the other one is our own. So let's take a pause over here in this video series, and we'll continue with the rest of the topics in the next one. So if this has been informative, and if you are preparing for the MS-102 exam, and if you found that the instruction is useful to you, please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. Do consider subscribing to the channel.